Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. This time, I'm bringing you another heartwarming story that proves life can surprise you at any age. Please stick around and enjoy it all the way to the end. And if you do enjoy it, I'd be so grateful if you hit that subscribe button and give this video a like. Your support means the world to me. Life's irony. I used to be a hairdresser and I was good at it. I once held scissors in my hands, creating beautiful works of art that color my customers' lives. Now I hold a mop and clean the homes of strangers. Life is truly ironic, isn't it? I was on the train heading toward an incredibly upscale residential area, the kind of place that was a perfect example of everything I had originally aspired to. I gazed blankly at the scenery passing by outside the window. At 75 years old, I still couldn't quite come to terms with the fact that I was, for the first time, working in someone else's home as a cleaner. The cold wind crept in through the gaps between my fingers, chilling my heart even more than the January air. Last fall, the beauty salon I'd cherished for 15 years closed. My husband passed away suddenly, and the debt he'd co-signed for the business ballooned like a snowball. Overnight, everything came crashing down. The home I'd lived in for years, the shop I'd grown so attached to, everything I'd cultivated, everything I'd ever known, was gone. It was all in the hands of someone else. I currently live in an old, sunless apartment. The humidity is terrible. The wallpaper is peeling off the walls. In the winter, condensation constantly clouds the windows. Still, the monthly rent is cheap, so I can't complain. I'm no longer in a position to indulge in luxury. My daughter, Emma, moved far away after getting married. Though she called occasionally to check on me, I felt like we were slowly growing apart. We were both busy, living our separate lives. The chairman's house. Just then, through an acquaintance, I was introduced to a job cleaning a house in that exclusive residential area. To be honest, I was incredibly nervous. It was my first time setting foot in a neighborhood populated by the ultra-wealthy. I opened the imposing gate and entered the property. I was immediately greeted by a vast garden covered in carefully laid snow. It was probably large enough to fit an entire apartment building. I couldn't believe someone lived alone in such a massive house. I knocked on the front door, heard footsteps, and the door opened. A tall, slender man appeared. It was Chairman Charles Peterson. I had heard he was 72, but his neat-knit sweater and slacks, along with his slender posture, made him look far more handsome and younger than his age. "Please don't touch the bedroom," he instructed, his voice flat, holding no emotion. "Only clean the living room, kitchen, and bathroom." He spoke little, and his expression was stiff, but I'm used to that atmosphere. Even back when I ran the beauty salon, I often had quiet, reserved customers. I simply nodded without saying a word and began cleaning. The house was incredibly neat and tidy. You could barely find a speck of dirt. Yet, strangely, it felt completely devoid of life. It was cold, almost like a model home where no one actually lived. There was no sign of anyone sitting on the sofa in the living room, and the dining table in the kitchen barely showed any signs of use. The house was so organized it felt empty, a showroom devoid of any human warmth. An empty niche. I couldn't help but wonder. The chairman must be terribly lonely living alone in such a large house. The house was expansive, but the air that filled it was thin, incredibly dissipated. While I was cleaning, the chairman spent his time quietly reading a book in his study or occasionally watching the birds in the garden. When our eyes occasionally met, we would exchange a brief formal greeting. At 3 p.m., when I finished cleaning and was getting ready to leave, the chairman came to the front door to see me off. "Thank you for your hard work, Martha. I'll ask you to come again at the same time next week." I bowed my head, said goodbye, and left the house. As I walked to the bus stop, I looked back several times. The chairman looked incredibly lonely, left alone in that big house. I wondered, would I be able to continue going there? This was my first time working for someone so wealthy and reserved, and I worried I might inadvertently do something rude. Such worries crossed my mind. But the pay was good, and the work itself wasn't too difficult. That was my only relief. That night, sipping a simple bowl of rice with tea in my sun-drenched old apartment, I recalled the big house. I wondered what it would be like to live in a place like that. But no matter how grand the house, the loneliness of living alone might be the same. The chairman, like me, must eat alone, go to sleep alone, and wake up alone. It suddenly occurred to me that I would have to go to that house again the next week. And yet, strangely, I didn't feel bad about it. In fact, I found myself looking forward to it a little. I didn't really understand why I felt this way, but a week had passed, and I was ready for my next visit. I made a rule to only do my assigned cleaning duties and leave quietly. No unnecessary words, no excessive worry. I believe that was my role in this unusual niche. Every time I visited, I noticed just how incredibly quiet the house was. The chairman spent most of his time either in his private study or taking solitary strolls around a vast garden, barely exchanging a word with me beyond a formal greeting. I stuck to my routine, maintaining the distance of a hired hand. Then one day, as I was getting ready to leave, he spoke to me. "I have to go out, Martha. Please lock the door when you're done." I gave a minimal reply. "Yes, Chairman." After he left, I was tidying up the kitchen, and I happened to open the refrigerator. It was startlingly empty. There was just a single carton of milk, and even that was past its expiration date. An act of compassion. In that moment, a thought completely derailed my professional focus. Is this man not eating properly? Is no one checking in on his health? It wasn't just the expired milk. The entire house seemed to be permeated with a kind of quiet spiritual exhaustion, as if its occupant had simply given up on the daily effort required to sustain life, assuming that living alone and eating poorly was just the way things were supposed to be. Just like my own shady apartment, where no one waited for me, no one came to greet me. The same profound silence existed here. Suddenly, my heart sank. I realized tears were welling up in my eyes. I felt so terribly sorry for the chairman, spending his days alone in this enormous house without even bothering to eat a proper meal. Or perhaps his situation simply reminded me of my own loneliness, hitting too close to my personal niche of quiet solitude. My emotions that day were more complicated than usual. On my way home, I made a quick decision. I stopped at the supermarket, bought a few essentials, and returned to his house. I simmered a pot of rich miso soup, made a traditional rolled omelet tamagoyaki, and prepared some savory stir-fried burdock root. I didn't write a note. I simply placed the dishes neatly on the dining table and quietly left the house, locking the door behind me. Of course, I felt awkward and a little guilty. Cooking was absolutely not part of the original contract, but I couldn't turn a blind eye to what I saw. This wasn't a work-related issue. It was a human problem. I couldn't just ignore the fact that someone was suffering alone and going hungry. I couldn't stop thinking about it even after I got home. Did the chairman eat the food I'd made? Or did he feel like I had intruded, like I was being a busybody? All night, those worries ran through my head. The first smile. A few days later, I visited the chairman's house again. As usual, we exchanged brief greetings at the entrance, and then he paused. "The miso soup was delicious, Martha," he said. It was exactly my taste. His words rang so much louder in my ears than a simple "thank you" ever could. I felt a warmth in his voice that was entirely new. A small, genuine smile appeared on the chairman's face, which was usually so stiff and reserved. "Yes, that's good." I found myself sighing. Until that moment, I hadn't realized how deeply happy it makes you feel to have someone genuinely enjoy the food you cooked. "I haven't had much of an appetite lately, so I just make do with whatever I have," he admitted, a hint of loneliness in his voice. But it's been a while since I enjoyed a home-cooked meal. I realized then that this person, like me, found it difficult to eat alone. He must have deeply missed the simple comfort and smell of warm, fresh food. From that day on, I began to walk through the gates of that house with the primary intention of cooking, not just cleaning. Stocking the refrigerator with ingredients and preparing a warm, comforting meal became a completely natural, unspoken part of my weekly routine. The chairman also gradually changed. He began to watch me cook from afar, sometimes even asking what ingredients I was using or how they tasted. He still spoke little, but the coldness that had defined him when we first met had vanished. A joyous occasion. One day, after eating the pork soup I'd made, the chairman leaned back and said, "I never thought meal times could be such a joyous occasion again." The moment I heard those words, tears welled up in my eyes, because I had experienced the exact same thing. I never knew that cooking for others, especially with care and love, could be so meaningful, so essential. Since then, I started cooking more delicious, healthier, and varied meals. I always tried new recipes to suit his taste. He never complained. In fact, he always made a point to express his sincere gratitude. As time passed, I started to feel like I wasn't just a cleaner in this house. Little by little, I was transforming into someone who brought warmth and life back into the Hawthorne estate. It was about a month after I started this routine. I usually wear drab pants and simple monochrome tops for work, but that day, for some reason, I stood in front of my closet for a long time. Then I took out a bright beige blouse that my daughter, Emma, had given me and put it on. Looking at myself in the mirror, I felt subtly different. Perhaps it was because I'd recently started eating properly myself, but my complexion looked healthier. The color of my clothes made me look brighter overall. I even felt a little lighter on my feet. When I arrived at the chairman's house and greeted him, he stared at me for a while, unlike his usual fleeting glance. And for the first time, he commented on my appearance. "Martha, your outfit suits you very well today." My face instantly grew hot. Since losing my husband, I couldn't remember the last time someone had paid me a compliment like that. Embarrassed, I looked down. "Oh, thank you. I'll start cleaning now." A shared meal, but the chairman stopped me. "How about we have dinner together tonight, Martha? It'll be better than being alone." I paused, completely taken aback. Until now, I would leave the house as soon as I finished cooking. I had never even considered eating together. However, I had no good reason to refuse, and the suggestion seemed so simple, so natural, that I just nodded. After I finished cleaning and was preparing dinner, the chairman brought over a bottle of wine. I was a little stunned, as I hadn't had wine in years. "I don't drink much, so please have a little," he offered. "It will lighten the mood." The chairman's gesture of pouring the wine seemed somehow familiar, and I thought that he must have spent this time with someone before. It was awkward sitting across from him at the dinner table. We were only employer and employee, so finding ourselves dining together suddenly felt very strange. We didn't know what to talk about. The chairman broke the silence. "Martha, do you have children?" The chairman broke the silence. "Martha, do you have children?" "Yes," I replied. "I have one daughter. She's married and lives out of state." "Do you keep in touch often?" "Occasionally," I admitted, taking a small sip of wine. "We've both been busy lately, so we've been less in touch." As we talked, we naturally started to open up about our situations. The chairman told me that his wife had died 7 years ago after a long illness, and that both of his children lived overseas. They only kept in touch occasionally, he said, looking incredibly lonely. "I grew up alone, so family has always been irreplaceable to me," he confessed. "But now I feel like I've grown distant from my own children." His confession weighed on my heart because it mirrored my own experience. I, too, felt that distance from my daughter, Emma. It seemed like the gap between us had grown wider since she got married. "I'm the same, Charles," I said. "We were so close when my daughter was little, but at some point, we just became more reserved with each other." As we sipped the wine, I could feel our hearts moving past the awkward formality. Deep inside, feelings that I normally found impossible to talk about began to spill out. I spoke of losing my husband, and then losing absolutely everything. The business, the house, the security. I spoke frankly about the crushing loneliness of being suddenly alone at this stage of life. The chairman, Charles, also opened up about the deep sense of loss he felt after his wife died, and the cold silence of spending time alone in his huge home. We understood each other's loneliness and loss perfectly. The night of comfort. I completely lost track of time. Lost in our pleasant conversation, I finally looked at the clock, and it was past 9 p.m. I started to stand up, realizing I had to make the drive back to my apartment, when the chairman said, "Martha, why don't you stay here tonight? It's late and the roads aren't safe." My heart pounded instantly. I felt both the urgent desire to be with him and a wave of natural reserve wash over me at the same time, but I couldn't refuse. To be honest, I truly didn't want to leave. That night, we lay next to each other in the guest room. It was strange and deeply comforting. Just lying back to back, tears quietly began to flow. I wasn't expecting anything physical. I simply needed to be by this person's side. Just hearing the sound of someone else breathing next to me seemed to ease the crushing loneliness of the night a little. Slowly, the chairman reached back and gently wrapped his hand around mine. I didn't refuse. I squeezed his hand back, and in that moment, the door to my heart, which had been so tightly sealed for so long, opened just a crack. That night, we fell asleep peacefully, each of us comforting the other. A small thought. Since that day, the chairman started giving me small, thoughtful gifts. The first one was a bookmark. It was engraved with tiny, precise lettering. A small thought can make a big day. I took that as a subtle confession of feelings, his quiet way of saying that the tiny things I did, the cooking, the company, mattered. From that night on, our interaction changed little by little, even when we weren't talking about deep feelings. Charles began to speak to me more frequently, and when I left the house, he would always ask me to be careful on my way home. He would hand me a small gift every few days. One day it was a lovely scented soap for my bath. Another day it was a fragrant hand cream. It wasn't anything expensive or extravagant, but someone had actively thought of me and prepared it for me. That thought made me happier than anything. Why did you buy me something like that, Charles? I'll feel embarrassed when I get home. I would say, don't worry about it. He'd reply, I just thought it would suit you. His way of speaking had become so much softer. The cold, silent demeanor he had when we first met was nowhere to be found. Sometimes he would watch me cook from afar, his arms crossed, a small smile on his face. Martha's cooking is so delicious. How did you learn that? It's just years of practice, I'd say. Even when I ran the beauty salon, I used to make meals for the employees. That explains why it's so comforting, he'd nod. These kinds of small conversations became a part of our daily routine. We used to just exchange greetings, but now we would share what had happened that day, getting closer all the time. The warmth of domesticity. One day, while I was washing dishes in the kitchen, the chairman came up to me from behind and gently embraced me around the waist without saying a word. My body stiffened instantly. It was such a surprise, but I didn't dislike the warmth of his hand. In fact, his presence calmed me. The chairman's body heat traveled down my back, and the faint scent of his cologne tickled my senses. Please keep going, he said gently. I continued washing the dishes. That moment was truly peaceful. I had never known it could be so wonderful to go about my daily life while feeling the warmth and presence of someone else. After that, Charles's warm hand started to touch me more often, not just in a secret moment, but in the kitchen, the living room. Even when I was sitting on a cushioned seat in the garden, he would put his hand on my shoulder or sit next to me and gently hold my hand. I was nervous at first, but I gradually got used to it. No, rather than getting used to it, I started to look forward to that warmth. A small thrill arose, wondering when Chairman's hand would touch me again. The question of love. But then, a question would always creep into my mind. Why exactly am I here? I've been hired to clean. Is this emotional connection really okay? When I looked in the mirror, my face was brighter than before. Recently, I'd started wearing a little more makeup and paid closer attention to my clothes. I found it strange that just the thought of seeing the chairman made my heart flutter. Martha, you look great today. Every time he said something like that, my heart leaped. Was this love, or was it simply a desperate desire to fill the void of loneliness? I was confused. It wasn't that I disliked his warm hands. In fact, I longed for them, but sometimes my heart felt heavy with the mystery of it all. If this was love, it was too quiet, and if this was desire, it was too warm. One day, Charles and I even went for a walk in the garden together. We walked side by side without saying a word, just feeling the evening air and enjoying the pleasant time. In moments like that, I sometimes felt like a married couple who had been together for many years. This house has changed since you arrived, Martha. It finally feels like home. I feel the same way, Charles. Coming to this house brings me a strange peace of mind. It was a time for us to slowly confirm our quiet feelings for each other. Perhaps this is what love looks like as we grow older, unhurried, gentle, and based on deep companionship. I wavered between anxiety and contentment, but gradually, without even realizing it, I began to understand that in this house, I was living a life beyond work, and that, I decided, wasn't a bad thing at all. Returning alone to my old, sunless apartment at night felt even more solitary. After experiencing the warmth of the chairman's house, my own room felt colder. I found myself wanting to stay longer and longer. Returning alone to my old, sunless apartment at night felt even more solitary. After experiencing the warmth and companionship of Charles's house, my own room felt colder, emptier. I found myself yearning to stay there longer and longer. Then, a few days later, it happened. I had finished cleaning the main rooms and was arranging a vase on a small table. Charles was nearby, preparing to tend to a new lily, his favorite flower. I didn't notice him approach quietly from behind. His footsteps were softer than usual. The moment I turned around, I knew we were too close. Startled, I lost my balance and nearly fell backward, but Charles was quick. He instantly grabbed my arm and pulled me to him, holding me steady. The defining moment. It all happened in an instant, but his reaction was so quick, so instinctive. I buried my face in his chest. His chest smelled of a faint, pleasant cologne, and I could hear his strong, steady heartbeat. I'm so sorry, Charles. I startled you, I mumbled, but he didn't reply. He just gently stroked my back, rubbing my skin. Are you hurt, Martha? He finally asked, his voice lower and softer than I had ever heard it. I raised my head and looked up at him. His eyes were right next to mine, and I could read a different, intense emotion in those eyes. In that moment, there was no need for words or apologies. Our lips simply met, quite naturally. First, a brief, light touch, then a little longer, deeper. A long-forgotten tremor spread throughout my body. Charles's hands wrapped firmly around my waist, and he slowly, deliberately led me toward the bedroom. I simply followed him without a word. Many thoughts rushed through my head, but my body refused to resist. He held my hand tightly and led me to sit on the edge of the bed. Then, he embraced me warmly, holding me firmly and deeply, as if he'd been waiting for this exact moment for a very long time. I could smell his own unique, human scent, a scent that was familiar and incredibly reassuring. His presence was so warm. I couldn't remember the last time I had felt such warmth since losing my husband. Tears welled up in my eyes, but I fought them back. Life renewed. The bedroom curtains were half drawn, and the afternoon sunlight streamed in quietly. I felt a little embarrassed that he would notice my flushed face, but before I could even think about it, Charles gently pulled me closer, calmly but gently, as if guiding me. In his warm arms, I felt truly loved for the first time in my life, and I gently closed my eyes. Without a word, we warmed each other, restarting the hands of the emotional clock that had long stopped. In his arms, I felt truly alive. I completely lost track of time. As the intensity of the moment waned and the evening glow began to paint the window, we remained silent, simply embracing each other as if to confirm each other's existence. Just that moment felt enough. Later, at dinner time, Charles spoke to me. "Would you like to stay here again tonight?" he asked, whispering in my ear. I smiled shyly and nodded quietly. My mind was already made up. To be honest, I didn't want to go back to my cold, sunless apartment. I wanted to spend every possible moment in his warm arms. From that day on, I slept in that house every night and ate at the same table as Charles every morning. Every night, I held his hand and lay down in the same room. We were no longer simply a cleaner and an employer, but partners in the twilight of our lives, deeply connected like a married couple. The love I discovered as I grew older quietly and deeply penetrated my heart. The commitment. I slowly began moving my belongings from the shady apartment. Charles completely naturally opened a corner of his closet and a dressing table drawer for me. A place for me simply appeared there. One day at dinner, Charles quietly looked up at me. "Martha," he said, "I don't want you to feel like you've just taken a seat here. I want you to simply live with me in this house as my partner." The first time he said those words, I felt like I was frozen solid. His words were heartwarming and joyful, but at the same time, I was struck by how far I had come and how real this was. I was stunned by his proposal, or should I say, because it was so completely unexpected. Even though I had been preparing myself mentally for weeks, hearing them in person felt unreal. My mind went completely blank after Charles asked me to live with him. I was stunned because the words were so real, so formal, and so completely unexpected, even though I knew that's where we were headed. That night, alone in my room, I called my daughter Emma. For the first time, I honestly told her everything. "Emma, your mother has been asked to live with a gentleman in the city." There was silence on the other end of the phone for a while. I could sense her immediate hesitation and doubt. "Mom, is the chairman your mother's boyfriend?" she asked, with a hint of confusion and concern. It was a natural reaction. From her perspective, this was so sudden and difficult to grasp. "Emma, do you think your mother is making a strange decision?" I asked gently. "No, I don't, Mom," she admitted. "But it's so sudden. Are you really okay?" I could feel Emma's genuine concern, but I also knew Charles needed to meet her. I felt it was the right thing to do to make this relationship real. The daughter's blessing. A few days later, I brought Emma to the mansion to meet Charles. Charles was dressed smartly in a suit and welcomed Emma into his home. From her first impression, he seemed very reliable. "Nice to meet you, Emma. My name is Charles Peterson." "Oh, yes. Nice to meet you, Chairman Peterson." Emma was silent for a while as they talked. Then she quietly stared at me. She gazed at my face carefully, scrutinizing me. Finally, she spoke. "Mom, I've never seen you look this happy. I don't think this is a bad thing at all." In that moment, a sudden rush of warmth welled up in my eyes. I never knew being recognized and accepted by my daughter could mean so much. "Chairman Peterson," Emma said, turning to him, "please take good care of my mother." "Of course, Emma. Your mother has been lonely for so long. I am grateful for her company, too." That night, after Emma had gone home, I went to Charles. "I'd like to live with you, Charles," I told him, meeting his gaze. "But I have one condition." "What is it, my dear?" "I want you to treat me as someone who eats meals with you, not just someone who cooks for you." Charles smiled brightly, taking my hand. "Of course. That was my intention from the beginning. At first, I was scared of the idea of living with someone again, but when I saw your face sitting at the dining table, I knew that was what I wanted." From that day on, I never looked back. Home at last. Charles told me, "I'll make you another key to this house." The moment I received the key, a tangible symbol of my new life, I felt truly relieved. I realized that I was now truly a resident of this house, his partner. I immediately canceled my lease on the old, shabby apartment. I didn't bring much with me, just a change of clothes, some makeup, and a few photos of my late husband. Charles quite naturally accepted me bringing my husband's photos. "Where would you like to put them, Martha? Would it be okay if I put them on a corner of the bookshelf in the hall?" "Go ahead," I said. "Anywhere in this house is your place now." And so I became the mistress of a mansion in the city center, not as a hired help, but as someone who would help raise this house into a home. At first, it was awkward, but it gradually became more natural. I found it very comforting to wake up in the morning, drink coffee with Charles, and start the day by reading the newspaper side by side. At dinner, we would sit together, watching TV or browsing the internet, just like any established couple. "It really feels like this has become our home," I said one evening. "It's been your home from the beginning, Martha," he corrected, his hand reaching for mine. "This is a home that's been waiting for you to come and fill its niche." His words warmed my heart. It was amazing to find such a stable, loving place at my age. Now I have a true home to return to, and someone waiting for me inside. After a few months of living here, I realized I was no longer the hired help in my own mind. My presence had become completely integrated into the home. The refrigerator was stocked with fresh ingredients I had chosen myself. Our clothes were mixed together in the washing machine. The cushioned seats I had knitted sat comfortably on the living room sofa. Even the flowers I had planted were proudly growing in the garden. It was our life, the growing family. My daughter, Emma, now started stopping by occasionally, saying she wanted to eat her mother's famous pork soup. I would watch her and Charles casually chat and joke around. The family atmosphere was palpable. One afternoon, Emma smiled warmly at Charles. "Chairman Peterson, please take good care of my mother. She looks happier than I've ever seen her." "Of course, Emma," Charles replied. "Thank you for always taking care of me with these visits." Every time I heard them converse like that, my heart warmed. Then Emma quietly approached me. "Mom, my daughter Lily's first birth celebration is coming up soon. We'd like to have a small ceremony. Would you and Charles like to come?" My granddaughter's first major celebration, a big family event. Charles seemed a little hesitant when I told him, "Is it really okay for me to come, Martha? It's a family event." I nodded. "Of course, Charles. Are we family now?" He nodded quietly, accepting the invitation. "I understand. I'd be honored." A grandfather's love. On the day of Lily's celebration, relatives and acquaintances gathered. It was a formal setting, full of her old social circle. At one point, an acquaintance approached Charles and asked him, "Mr. Peterson, you become a grandfather, haven't you?" Charles answered without hesitation, his voice ringing with pride. "Yes, of course, because she's my granddaughter." His words brought unexpected tears to my eyes. This was the true validation. From a short distance away, Emma bowed heartily to Charles, expressing her deep gratitude. "Thank you so much, Charles," she said. "Lily has a grandfather now." "I'm grateful, too," he replied, giving Emma a gentle smile. "My granddaughter has made our home even warmer." Now, in our home, a photo of our adorable granddaughter hangs prominently on the living room wall. We even organized a corner of a guest room with baby supplies, a room ready for her to come over at any time. It truly feels like we're a complete family now. "We were a family from the beginning, Martha," Charles said one evening. "We just needed time to confirm that bond with our hearts." His words were true. We're not a family bound by fate or formal status, but a true family bound by a shared heart. New beginnings. Now, every morning feels fresh. Even the simple moments, like when Charles makes me coffee without having to ask if I slept well, are a thrill. Nearly a year after we started living together, Charles decided to retire completely. We now have so much more time at home together. We read the newspaper face-to-face, drink coffee at a local cafe. make pickles together, go shopping, and visit art museums. A new, beautiful routine has been born for our twilight years. "Martha, what should we do today?" he'll ask. "Well, Charles, since the weather's nice, how about some gardening?" "That sounds good. I'll help you." Sometimes it's just nice to walk to the garden without saying a word, simply holding hands and taking a leisurely stroll. It is truly peaceful. One day, Charles suddenly said, "Marta, why don't we go on a trip somewhere?" "A trip? Where we go, Charles?" "How about a nice beach vacation?" he suggested. "I've always wanted to go to a tropical island, but it wouldn't have been fun alone." "I've never been to a place like that either." I smiled. So we set off on our first trip together. We spent 3 nights and 4 days on a beautiful island, and honestly, we were as excited and happy as newlyweds. Charles took me wherever I wanted to go. We explored local markets, ate our favorite foods, and just laughed. "Traveling like this is a wonderful thing," I said, gazing out at the ocean. "It is, Martha. It really is. Let's make sure we go out more often from now on. We have plenty of time." Share hobbies, deeper bond. Back home, our daily lives became even more colorful. We attended cooking classes together, not just for me but for him, and participated in programs at the local cultural center. Charles learned a bit of woodworking, and I learned flower arrangement. "Shall I show you what I learned today?" I'd ask. "Wow, Martha, that's so beautiful. You've really improved your handiwork. And your carving is getting better and better, too, Charles." We enjoyed encouraging each other in our hobbies and deepening our learning together. Our life was rich with companionship. Then one day, the first snow fell. I was standing by the window, watching the fluttering snowflakes gently cover the garden. Then Charles came up quietly behind me and put his arms around me. "This house is warm, Martha, only because you're here." I looked back at him, tears blurring my vision slightly. "Can we watch the first snowfall together like this next year?" "Of course," he said firmly. "We'll watch it together every year from now on." The final embrace. That night, Charles passed away peacefully in our bedroom. He held my hand tightly and looked at me, a calm smile on his face. "Thanks to you, Martha, spring has finally come back to my life. And to mine, Charles. I am so happy to have met you." We embraced each other and fell asleep in each other's arms, just as we had done every night for months. Our love had grown older, yes, but each day was new, fresh, and filled with quiet, profound excitement. I woke up the next morning, and he was gone. But his love, his warmth remained. Our life, the life we built together, continued in that house. I made coffee. I tended to the garden. I made sure the space he loved, his niche, was cared for. The continuation of family. One Sunday morning, sometime after, Emma came to visit with our granddaughter, Lily. Lily had already started toddling, happily hopping around the house. The sight of my adorable granddaughter running to the home that Charles had made a sanctuary filled my heart with warmth. I could almost hear Charles's laugh, see the huge smile that used to spread across his face whenever he saw Lily. I knew how long he had waited to have that joy in his life. Seeing this scene, I felt accustomed to this truly perfect family we had become. As we had lunch together, Emma smiled. "Mom, it's so nice to see you. You seem much happier, even now. You look so settled." "Yes, I really am happy these days, Emma. You look happy, too." After Emma and Lily left that evening, I took a quiet walk in the garden, admiring the sight of the space we had cherished together. "We are truly blessed, Charles," I whispered to quiet air. "I never thought I would feel this happy and fulfilled at my age." Love at dusk. I realized then that our love wasn't something special or grand in the way the world understands romance. It was something born from the simplest things, from the fingertips that prepared meals every day, from the quiet presence and shared breath at night. Cooking for Charles had become the focus and meaning of my life. That night in our bedroom, I lay down and felt the lingering warmth of our shared life. The moonlight streamed gently in from outside the window, illuminating the space where we had found our peace. Although our love met at dusk, each day was filled with the same sense of excitement and deep happiness we'd found. Our ordinary, yet utterly irreplaceable, daily life will continue here. The quiet, deep, and warm love we met as we grew older will flow on. The story concludes here. Since the original script finished with a standard YouTube call to action, I will generate that now. Final outro. Once again, I want to express my sincere gratitude for taking the time to watch this heartwarming story until the very end. If you found the story interesting, or if it resonated with you, Please subscribe to our channel and give this video a high rating. Your support truly means a world and helps us keep telling these stories. We would also love it if you left a warm comment below, sharing your support for Martha and Charles and your thoughts on finding love later in life. Thank you very much. I'll see you in the next video.